So now it's time to create the sign-in API since we already completed the sign-up API. We'll go to our server folder. Over here we have the routes, and in the routes we have the auth.route.js. Right here you just have to bring another line here. So I'm gonna go alt. So 1 second, alt, shift, and down, and instead of sign up, sign in, and change this to sign in. Right now there doesn't exist anything, and that's why there's complaining, like it's saying what is sign in, right? It's saying reference error sign in is not defined at this file. So what we want to do is we want to go to the controllers, and in here we have the auth.controller.js, bring it up here, and we have to create the sign in function. So what we do is export const, and then we have sign in, so like this, sign in. Okay, and then we have an asynchronous function, request response next, and just close it like that. Okay, so that's there. You could basically import it now. So sign in, this is the function, right? So we have control, and then basically it's imported like that. No more errors, no more problems, right? If you go and just launch your backend like this, I mean, it doesn't even complain anymore if you wrote that. Perfect. Okay, so now we have this perfectly aligned, and now we have to go and basically create this sign in API. So what is the process here? The process is that the user will give his email and password, and you have to authenticate whether those email and passwords are valid in the database. So what we want to do is we want to first of all, you're basically requesting the body. Remember the request.body that comes from the client. This is extracting only what we only need the email, and we also need only the password. Okay, the password and the email is the only things that are of concern, and that's essentially what we're getting from the request.body. And let me just fix this mic. Okay, so now after this, we're gonna have to go and we're gonna have to check if the email is empty or the something like that. So if the email does not exist, or if the password does not exist, remember the same stuff we have been doing before, or we have if the email is basically a null, empty, or if the password is empty. So basically if email is not there, password is not there, if email is empty or password is empty, something like that. Okay, what we can do is we could say next error. So we remember we created that error handler, so we say error handler, and we have the 400 error, so we have 400, and we say all fields are required. And then after this check, we could actually go in the try and catch block, and this is where our main action comes in play. So the action is the API that we want to call. So over here what we want to do is not the API we want to call, but we're just actually building this API right now. So what we want to do is we want to have to first check the user if that exists in the database. So we could basically use await, and then we can use the model, which is user. Remember that we've imported here this from the model.js, right? User.model.js, and we use the keyword which is find one. If we could find the user by its email, right? We could find the user by its email. If we find the user by its email, we basically put it inside a const valid user object. So it's something like this. If we got it, that's great. I mean, now what we want to do is we want to basically see if that thing is valid. If it's not valid, so suppose if valid, it's not valid. So what we could say is next, again, throw out an error handler and just say 400 invalid email or password, or what you could just basically say is not that, but you could just say that the 404 error because it's not existing. So 404, and then you could just say user not found. Okay, so that's great. And now after this particular case, we want to actually you basically want to check if the password is valid or not, right? So the user gave a password which is, let's suppose, right here. So request.password, and the user gave this password. We want to match it and see if it actually is the same as the password that is set in the database, right? First of all, the password that we've set is encrypted using bcrypt, right, JS. So what we want to do is we have to convert our password that the user has given to some bcrypt format again, compare the two encryption things. If they match, then proceed. If not, decline. So something similar we have to do. So what we want to do is, first of all, we have to go and say bcrypt.js. So bcrypt.js, remember that we imported it above here as well. So that there. Okay, so what we're going to do is bcrypt.js.compare sync. So this is the thing. It's called compare sync. So compare sync. Okay. Compare sync basically has the password, what the user has given. Remember, the user has given, and the valid password that is in the database, the valid user.password. Okay, so it gave valid user.password. Okay. Okay, so this is comparing both of the things. Okay, now what happens is that if it's valid, so we basically put as a valid password. Okay, so valid, just like how we did valid user, this is valid password. If the valid password is valid, I mean, it's good, but right now we have to check the bad case. The bad case is if it's not valid. The valid password is not correct, or it's not matching, or whatever happened. So we just say next, and then we have error handler. Okay, error handler. Now over here we basically use this error status code, which is 400 client error, and then we say invalid password. Now what I want to tell here is that it's not a good practice to tell that your password is invalid or your email is invalid, because that's going to give a hint to the person who's trying to hack the system. And it's better to just say invalid credentials and have no clue whether the hacker was trying to access the email or the password, and trying to change it accordingly. So just, it's a common rule to not tell that, but right now I'm just keeping it like this, but it's just a good practice to know. Okay, so now what we want to do is, right after this we check the password thing, we want to go and we want to make a token to basically save it in the cookie browser, user browser, so that we could quickly authenticate the user whenever the user signs in within the browser. It's going to be using JWT, so we're going to have to turn off our server right here, and we're going to have to install npm i JSON web token. Okay, when I install this, it would be installed really easily, and then we could just restart our server using npm run and dev. Okay, so now this is installed perfectly. Let's go and now what we want to do is we want to sign a token. So what the thing is JWT. Okay, so JWT, and then we have dot this sign function. Okay, so this is the thing, and I believe we have it imported or not. So control space. So we're gonna have to import JWT from the top. Over here, we're gonna do is import JWT. So basically, you say JWT from, and then you could just say JSON web token. So JSON web token, like that. You could use JWT.sign. It's going to use some particular unique thing. You could give anything to the JWT for signing the token, but what I would recommend is using something unique that object has. You could use an email, but a better thing that you want to do is, if you go to the databases, remember the database which was over here, Mongo database, there was a value which had underscore user underscore ID. So we could use that initially. So if we go back here, I mean, it's taking a little bit of time here, but once I go here, you could see over here in the browse collections, if you go in here, you'll see every object has this underscore ID. See this underscore ID, and then this is the ID. So for this particular use case, and for this particular use case, it's very unique. So this is distinguish everything, and we could use this in our JSON web token. One thing I want to say is that if I create a username with ABC, and I will email ABC at gmail.com and 123, it's going to create something very unique in my end, and in your end, it's going to be completely different. It doesn't really matter, like the things are same, and the object ID has to be the same. It's not. It's going to be all different regardless. It's going to be it's just going to be completely different. Okay, so now over here, what we're going to do is we're going to capture that. So we already know we have valid user, right? So valid user has this field which is called dot underscore ID. So it's basically dot underscore ID. Okay, so we want to use that, and we also want to use basically we want to use that. So how I could go about this is that we have a sign, and we have to put it in this object thing. So in this object, right, what we want to do is we could actually use this object like this as well, but I'm just going to consider it like this. Okay, so over here we could sign it. So the way we could sign it is using our valid user. So valid user dot underscore ID. Okay, so this is one thing I want to say is that what you want to do is essentially in the object pass, you want to put valid ID. So each web token will have an ID. You could use that same thing, which is valid user dot underscore ID. Okay, like that. Okay, so now the same thing goes and applies for this next thing that we want to do is we want to pass in a secret thing that it's going to combine with to basically create a code thing, a code snippet thing. So what we could do is we could go to our .env. Remember, in our server folder we have this .env file, and we have this Mongo connection string. Right here you could make another one, and you could just call it almost anything you want. So what I would recommend calling it is JWT secret, because it's just going to be better. JWT secret, and you could name anything you want. So we'll just put it in as cleverly. Okay, so this is our secret. Go back in here, and we want to go and say just use it. So process. So what we want to do here is we put a comma. Okay, and we could just put it right in here. So process .env.jwt secret, like that. Perfection. Okay, so that's great. I mean, we have this signed. We could put it as a variable, so we could just say const token. Okay, and this is our token that's created. Now the thing here, what we want to say is that this token is created using this ID of the user, as well as the token, I mean that secret key that we gave, and it basically creates like a string, a combination of so many characters, very unique to every single user. And what we want to do is we basically want to response that. So response dot status, and we could say response dot status 200 means it's a success, and then we have dot cookie. Okay, and then we have name of the cookie, I mean token, we could just say is as access token. We could just name it whatever we want, but I'll just say access token. This is the token that we pass in, the token that we've created recently. And inside here we want to put in HTTP colon HTTP only, HTTP only, which is true. This is for a security measure. And right after this we want to say .json, and then we want to say, you know, basically you would just say sign in successful, or you could just return the valid user. So you could just basically return the valid user like that. Okay, so I want to show you one thing, and if we could get this next error as well. So next, and then we have error. Okay, so now I believe everything seems to work. We could also use this extension that formats the document really nicely. Just clicks, and then you could just format it. Looks better. I believe everything is working and connected properly. We go to the extensions. Here we have the API auth and sign up. So let's just create another one here, and we can just copy this one, which is sign up. Copy this one, go here and paste it right here. And instead of sign up, first we'll sign in. Okay, sign in. So first of all, we have the post method. Both are post methods. So make sure this is a post method as well. Now the thing here is that we have 1, 2, 3. This, so I'm just going to copy this as well, the response. And in the body we have JSON, which is right here, and paste right here. Okay, so we don't need a username. Okay, so let's try with an email that does not exist in the database. If I send it, you can see over here I got a response that says false, and status goes 404 and user not found. Okay, now if I authenticate it with try to user that exists in the database and press send, you could see that I have the ID, the username, the email, the password, what I don't want to see, and then we have created ad, updated ad. I want to not have the user see its hashed password. So you could actually take that out as well. It's super easy, and what we could do is right where you see there's const, right here where there's valid user, there's a thing called valid user dot underscore doc. And inside the underscore doc, you could basically have the password basically removed in. Okay, so we use valid user. I mean, it basically returned this whole thing, right? It returned that response. But what we want to do is we want to take out the password. So we could say const, and we could just say extract the password. So okay, so we could just say like this. Okay, valid user, and then over here we have the password, which is just name it as pass. Okay, we need to rename it, and the rest would be all fine using the spread operator. Okay, so we basically now have this rest contains everything and except for the pass. Okay, and that's why we removed that, and now instead of throwing valid user the entire thing, we could just say rest. Okay. Now, if I believe it would sign in with that. So I wanted to show that before clicking that again, if we go to the you know, over here, which is in the response, headers and cookies. If you look at the header, this is the cookie access token has been created. Okay, that's amazing. And over here, there's a separate panel for cookie, and this is our cookie. But let's go back here into the response and now do it without this password being shown. So sign. So you can see now we only have the things that we need. And again, if you go to the cookies, we have our cookie, and this is a combination of our user underscore ID. Remember that dot underscore ID that's coming from the MongoDB, and also a combination of our secret JWT secret, which is Cleverly. So that's why this is my access token, and I could use this and I could basically create that for my login. So what we want to do is now add this to our sign in UI. What we have to do is create that. So